Hi, how are you guys? It is, I don't even know what day it is. I have to think about this. It's Thursday and it's the middle of the day, and this is totally unconventional and not planned. I just thought I'd take a minute to come on here and do a quick live. Just thoughts I'm having today, and I don't always have the opportunity to share in the moment when I'm having the thought. And I am home today. If you were following online, you see I was in Michigan with my family for the last few days. And I took the week, so I have today kind of like amazingly free, which really gives me time to focus on journey to present and what I'm doing and what I'm creating, which is really fun for me. And I did a live on Tuesday, and it's not up on the page. I pulled it down because where we were staying in Michigan, I had like no service, and it was cutting in and out, and when I tried to watch it back, it wasn't good. So I was like, you know what, we're gonna just scrap that. So I apologize if you missed it, but there wasn't much to miss. So, but because I didn't do that, I was like, I still want to have a live out there this week. So I am doing this now. So what I wanted to talk to you about, what's coming to mind for me today, is something from Access Consciousness that is, I'm going to say it wrong if I don't say it, or if I don't read it. Do not listen to, tell, or buy the story. And what I mean by that is, and what Access Consciousness means by that, is that we get so stuck in our stories and in listening to other people's stories that we make them solid and we make them real. And as a result, we allow ourselves to stay stuck. So this is something interesting that happened a few weeks ago, I guess. I was on a call with Crystal Crawford, who I follow kind of religiously. I'm a little fangirl there on Access Consciousness stuff. And she said to me, it was a live call, hi John. She said that I said, gosh, I really want to work towards being an Access Consciousness certified facilitator. So right now I'm a bars facilitator, which means I facilitate bars classes. I have another one coming up August 4th here in Batavia. If anybody is still on the fence, you still have about a week and a half to get in on that. I'd love to have you here, but shameless plug over there. But where I was saying with this is I really want to go further. And in order to do that, there's a lot of classes and it costs money, and all the access classes, of course, do cost something, as with any certification that you're going towards. And I said, geez, if it was just me, it would be so different. But I have a family, I have a husband, and I, can't just spend gobs of money without getting permission from him, or without, I don't know, permission, but at least without the discussion and the conversation around it and all of that. And she said to me, that's just your story. Why are you buying that story? And I was so like, but no, like, this is a real thing. This is real. Like, what do you want me to do? I can't risk my marriage. I can't. And I started resisting and reacting to that. And I don't think I did it out loud to her. I was like, okay. But in my head, I was like, oh, but you don't understand. Like, you don't get it. Or this is, and I got strong in that story. And I feel like it took me weeks, maybe. I don't know when this was exactly now. Before I was able to interesting point of view that, which if you haven't heard me talk about interesting point of view, I think there's probably a bunch of lives on it, but basically the idea of interesting point of view is if we resist and react to something, we hold it in place. And if we align and agree with something, we hold it in place. And so my resisting and reacting to that internally was sort of holding that in place for me too. And I this morning, I don't know, something hit me differently. And I was like, no, I have a class, I'm taking a 3-day body class coming up, and I will look into the new year. I plan on taking, the next few classes in the next year. And somehow it just didn't seem like a big issue anymore. And my husband's amazing and he'll support me, and I have, my business stuff, and I'll do it through that, and it's fine. So I don't know what that resisting and reacting was so big on my story. And I bring this up because I wonder how many of you are also doing that in so many different ways, that we buy our story. We buy our own story. We buy other people's stories. People say, oh, I can't do that because of the thing. Oh, I have this, this thing happened. And so now woe is me, and I'm stuck, and I'm a victim, and all these things. And it's not that I don't care or that I don't believe those things to be true, but we're just like me when I was like, no, you don't get it. I have a husband and I have a family, and I can't just do this thing. And she was like, that's just your story. And I was like, but And so isn't that interesting now? I really had to sit on that. Like I said, it's been weeks. But how much is that we're buying into other things? So I was reading this book, Pragmatic Psychology, by Dr. Susan Mittelmeier. She's also a psychologist who has gone into the world of access consciousness. And I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to read from it. But she was talking about depression and anxiety. And as a psychologist, obviously, I connect to that as well. And how much are we buying the story of depression or buying the story of anxiety? And people get really up in arms about this. No, it's a real thing. And I know it is. I know it's a real medical thing. I have anxiety, had anxiety. I think it's gone now. I've said that a few times. But I get it. I know there's a brain thing. I know I know. It's what I do for a living. Like when I'm not doing this. So all of those things are true. And the more we buy into it and say, well, I can't because of my depression, or I can't because of my anxiety. I can't go to the store because I have social anxiety, or I can't meet up with people because of this thing, and I'm buying into that story, how much am I limiting myself? Where if we ask a question, like what else is possible? What else can contribute here? What else could I choose that would make this easier for me, that would make this possible, that would make this expansive? And what else could I do now to not buy into the story, to say interesting point of view, or interesting point of view, I have that point of view, if it's your own stuff, and then let it go and say, okay, I'm going to do the thing anyways. I was talking to a client of mine last week, maybe before. I told you my time is all screwy, but about what can you recognize in your body and then choose to do what needs to be done anyways. If we're afraid to go someplace new with new people, yes, okay. But if you are like, yeah, no, that's my thing, I'm really anxious, I can't do it, you leave yourself stuck and you hold that tight. But if you're like, okay, what can I do to make this possible? What can I do that would change the situation right now? What magic can I be to have the allowance to open myself to something new and different? So this is from the Foundation's Manual of Access Consciousness. However, it's in there's so many Access books, and it's in most of them. So I feel like I can share this with you. But it's to not listen to, tell, or buy the story, like I said. So it says the story is always the justification for why somebody does or does not do something. It's not real. It's not true. It's just the story that justifies the actions that they take and reactions that they create. What do people use their stories for? To maintain their victimhood and to justify the choices they made, rather than recognize that they choose it. You don't have to have a reason for anything. Even if it's your own story that you're telling yourself, you don't want to tell it, listen to it, or buy it. So what part of this story am I buying is true and real? It's a question you can ask. People who are into the story are usually not into awareness. So we talk about that for ourselves, right? Which is the example that I gave you. But also when we talk about other people's stories and how much we allow ourselves to be sort of stuck in other people's stories. As they're like, oh, well, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or this awful thing happened to me, or, oh, I'm going through this terrible thing. And you're like, oh, that's so awful. I'm so sorry. And I get it. That's a human reaction. Like we care, and we should care, I guess. That's, an interesting point of view too. But can you care and provide support and empathy and all of that without buying into that story so much so that you're solidifying it for that person? How much is you saying, oh, that's true, your life really is hard? How much is that keeping them stuck? Or when you ask them what else is possible, what choices do you have available here? What are the infinite possibilities or awarenesses you can have to change the situation? Anything like that, isn't that more helpful than, yeah, you're right, you are really stuck? Because does that actually, it validates, and a lot of times we do need that validation that somebody agrees that everything sucks. But have you ever sat in a room with somebody and they're like, yeah, this horrible thing happened and this sucks, and you're like, yeah, that sucks, and they're like, yeah, this sucks. nobody's moving. Nothing's going anywhere. And we're not coming up with solutions. We're not. And I get that there's something in holding space. I'm not denying that it's wonderful to have a friend who can just be there and listen and be, hold that with you. I'm not saying not to do that or be that. Just be aware of what you're creating. So are you creating stuckness for that person, for yourself? And I've talked about before, I think, who does this belong to? Are you holding that now for them? And are you now going to walk out of there feeling like crap and feeling low and hopeless and like, oh, there really is no way out. This is such an awful situation. And now I feel low. And their energy hasn't changed, and now mine has matched theirs, and we've all bought the story, and we're all like, great, now everything's hopeless. I don't know about you, but that's not what I want to create. So how can we create a different future? How can we create different possibilities together? What can we do to open up this place of awareness and expansiveness and stop buying into our own stories and everybody else's stories, and recognizing that even though it was really hard for me to hear Crystal say that to me that day, or like, that's just you buying into your story, I didn't like it. It was hard to hear, and it was really important. So I don't know, was she being a good friend who is listening? And no, I guess not, but that wasn't her job in that moment. She was facilitating. But did she open up something for me that I realized had really been keeping me stuck? Yeah. And so can we be that for people, even when it's hard sometimes? And how can we be that for ourselves too? So, did I have anything else on that? Oh, I did, but I feel like it's less related now. But when it comes to anxiety and depression and all of those things, I kind of got off of that. Somebody asked on a call I was listening to, I don't know, this week, is anxiety, like, what is anxiety basically? I don't remember what the exact question was. And anxiety, for me, I learned, is awareness. Is awareness of that, goes back to that who does this belong to thing, is that when we feel that anxious, that tightness in your solar plexus or in your chest or wherever you become aware of anxiety, how much that is really just an awareness of everything going on around you, other people's energies, other people's thoughts. And usually when you ask, who does this belong to? Is it someone else's? Is it mine? Is it someone else's? Is it something else's? That's a whole nother story. We'll get there. But, if it's somebody else's, return to sender with consciousness attached, and you feel lighter and you let that go. And so most of what we feel as anxiety really is awareness. And most fear is covering up potency. I've been talking about potency a lot lately. I feel like this might be another whole live on what is potency. But potency is when you're like, people cover up anger with potency, people cover up fear with potency. And a lot of times people don't do anger because they are afraid of it, when in reality what it is an anger, it's potency. It's that standing in your power kind of thing. Like when you're just like saying, no, this is what I know. This is what I know to be true, and standing firm in that and being awareness and being control and being power. And how do I want to say this? How much we end up having fear because we're sort of fearing the anger reaction, or fearing the being too big, too much, too, all the twos, fearing being too weird, too quirky, too odd, too much, too loud, too much. When people say, oh, she's too much, or, oh, he's a lot, right? Are we afraid of that? And so we squash that down, and that's what creates anxiety and fear, when in reality that is your potency, that is you being you in your, standing in your true being, in your true power. And how much is that's not even a question for me. Anxiety is awareness, period. I wouldn't even say how much of your anxiety is awareness. All of your anxiety is awareness. Like I said, I used to be super, super anxious. I can't even believe that I get on here and do these lives now, and I don't even think anything about it. There was a time that this would have been terrifying for me, or having to do anything, or putting myself out there in the world was super scary. And I was always on edge, always afraid somebody was going to be mad at me, always afraid that somehow I was going to end up alone, I was going to lose people, all of those things. And once I started doing this stuff, this access consciousness stuff, the bars, which is, part of access consciousness, and just really like standing in my own power, it all went away. And once I recognized it as awareness, it's like gone. So how much are we buying the story? I guess that is the question at the end of all of this, is how much are we buying the story that I have anxiety so I can't do it, or I have depression so I can't get up today. And while that might be what feels like truth, is it light for you? And if it's light, fine. But if it's heavy, it's not right. It's a lie. Anything that's heavy is a lie. So then get up off your butt. As hard as it is, I'm not saying this stuff isn't hard, you guys. But we have to get up and do it anyways. Be aware of what is our own stories that we're buying into so that we can change it. So I think that's all I have now. I hope you are all having a beautiful, amazing Thursday. I see I still have to hesitate. I'll get this. I can go back to work next week, and I swear I'll end up back on a normal schedule. My best friend's coming in from Portland over the weekend, so I'm beyond excited to see her. I don't know how much of me you will see because of that. And I know I was just gone on vacation, so I'm trying to squeeze into things. So anyways, have a beautiful week, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.